The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit GiveStarQuest.com.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them. I'm Thomas Salerno, and I'm thrilled to welcome back to the show Kaitlyn Facista. Hello, Kaitlyn.
Hi, I'm so happy to be back.
And also joining us tonight is Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Thomas.
And joining us for the first time, I believe, on the show is Robert Story. Hello, Robert.
Hello there.
All right. So for our longtime listeners who remember way back when we, rebooted this show when season 1 of The Rings of Power was first coming out, Kaitlyn was part of our original fellowship. Back then, I almost said panel, but no, it's fellowship on this show.
Yeah.
And she is the creator of the website and community Tea with Tolkien. So we're so happy to have her back. Man, was that really over 3 years ago?
I was thinking about it, and I think that the years are going by just really fast.
Yeah, it seems like the older we get, the faster they go by. Terrific. But we have her back for a very wonderful reason, and that is because she has just published a new book, Into the Heart of Middle-earth, exploring faith and fellowship in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. And tonight we're going to talk to her all about it. But before we dive right in, Rob, could you just give a brief intro to yourself and your Tolkien background, since you're also new with us on the show?
Absolutely. For those of you who don't know, I am Sir Another One Rob of Gondor on Discord, which is probably still my personal favorite nickname. As a millennial, I have been introduced through Tolkien through the traditional way. These movies came out, and my mom strictly forbid me from watching them, saying I had to read the books instead, which is something I am eternally grateful to her for. Then I got to watch the movies, but not the first one, so I had to figure out what was going on from context. And I did eventually watch all 3 of them, I swear. And after that, I became just a ridiculously hardcore nerd. Some of you have seen I've branched into costuming. I teach medieval bushcraft and survival while dressed as a ranger, which is popped up a time or two on the Discord. And as a Catholic, I just won't shut up about Tolkien ever. So here we are.
Yeah, you'll fit right in with this group, Robert.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Jeff, so you have kind of a couple of intro questions for Kaitlyn.
Yeah, so just since it's been a little while, we probably did this back, like we said, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. Since it's been a little while, can you remind us of your background with Tolkien? Kind of how did you first encounter the world? What, kind of drew you into, this world of Middle-earth that you've become such a big part of the fan community in?
Yeah, of course. I similarly to Robert, I came through the movies, but my parents did not make me read the books first. So I just went 100 miles an hour with the movies. And then after I had become obsessed with the movies, it was when I started to read the books. So I was 11 or 12 at school, trying to doodle in Elvish on my folders. And I had no friends. I was a big nerd. But it's worked out for me well now. I've always loved Tolkien ever since I just encountered Middle-earth for the first time. And it's really been something that I grew up with. Through high school, I incorporated Tolkien into all of my English projects, art projects, any kind of project I had for school. I was like, how can I make this about the Lord of the Rings? Then I graduated, go to college. And around then is when I started trying to read the Silmarillion for the first time. And it took me multiple attempts, but finally got it. And then, I've kind of just grown up with Tolkien.
Awesome. Yeah. We just marched through the Silmarillion and it took us about 2 years on this podcast. So
yeah.
That's great though. That's kind of a nice leisurely stroll through the Silmarillion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm the same way. I got into it probably through, as Robert as well, through the movies. I think I read the books first too. But awesome. And then, just want as a follow-up, just, going from being just a fan to how did you decide to start Tea with Tolkien, going from just a fan to starting a community, and just what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, I think it kind of ties into the way that, like, as I was younger, getting really into Tolkien, it was not something that was super popular at school or in like friend groups. And then as I became a mom, I'd be at like mom play dates with other moms and their babies, and none of them want to talk about Lord of the Rings. They just want to talk about like nap schedules and stuff, which is all great. But sometimes you just want to talk about Tolkien stuff. And so I eventually kind of just turned to the internet, looking for fan communities that I could be a part of. And I specifically wanted to find somewhere that I could talk about not only Tolkien stuff, but also the way that Tolkien's faith influenced his life and his writings, and the way that it kind of inspires my own faith. And I really didn't see it's possible that something like that existed already, but if it did, I couldn't find it, because in most places, there's kind of a general, like, there's no politics and no religion allowed to be discussed in most big forums. And I know totally makes sense, because it can be a hot topic, and it's hard to moderate. So what I did is, I wanted to start my own. So I started a community that is specifically inspired by the life, the works, and the faith of Tolkien, just because I wanted to be able to talk kind of freely about all of those. And that was really like the beginning of Tea with Tolkien.
Awesome. And just going off of that, going from just what was your kind of initial with Tea with Tolkien? Like, did you start off just doing like a book club type of thing that kind of grew out into a wider community, or what was kind of the jump in, what was kind of the big jumping in point with Tea with Tolkien?
Yeah, it was definitely like one day I just made a Twitter account and I was like, here it is, didn't have any plans. And then after that, I remember I made a Facebook group, and that is where we had a book club. And of course, it was really small when we started, and we read The Lord of the Rings together and The Hobbit. And then eventually it grew. And I personally find Facebook very confusing and overwhelming, like the way that it's formatted and the notifications. I hate being on Facebook. And so finally, eventually we moved over to Discord, and that's like where the hub of our community is. And the book club really is like the main thing that we do. And it's kind of what draws people to us. And it's like my favorite part of it.
Awesome. Yeah. You definitely have a Discord, which you'll need to shout out at the end. I haven't joined it, but I don't know if Thomas, you have, or anyone else has joined the Discord.
As a fun fact, my wife and I were actually some of the first members of the Discord way back when. I don't think I am, because I think I lost that account, but she still might be.
No way. That's awesome.
Awesome. I think Robert's going to ask our next question.
Yes, of course. So we'll do, of course, like the classic. Tell us about the book. Why write yet another book about Tolkien when instead everybody else just kind of copies him? You study him. And how long ago did that start? And was it at age 11 like other people who are asking questions?
Yeah, well, I've always loved writing. In middle school, I was always like writing poetry and fiction, and I loved writing essays as a kid. Like, you assigned me an essay, and it was like, you might as well have told me we're going to go get ice cream. Like, I loved writing essays. And so as I'm growing up, I feel like my love for writing and my love for Tolkien were growing together. And eventually that became Tea with Tolkien. And then eventually from that, I was given the opportunity to write a book. And at first I was like, absolutely not. Like, that's a huge commitment. I couldn't possibly do that. And I really felt like Bilbo when the dwarves are like knocking on the door and Gandalf's showing up. And Bilbo's like, no, I can't go on an adventure. Like, that'll make me late for dinner. Like, that's too much. I'm just a little hobbit. But then just like Bilbo, I felt like something Tookish was waking up inside of me. And I was like, you know what, maybe I can do this. So when the opportunity finally presented itself, I was like, I feel like I shouldn't say no. So I said yes. And then, it kind of went from there.
Yeah. And as a follow up to that, Kaitlyn, so as a fellow author, I know that this whole process of creating a book isn't just like, people have this idea now that like, oh, you just write a book and then it's just there. And anybody, I don't think people understand how long and involved a process of bringing a book to publication actually is. I mean, I wrote a 40-page kids book and it took 2 years for it to see the light of day. From I signed the contract to people can buy it. It took about 2 years. How long was this process of, did you seek out publishers, or did they seek you out? And like, how long did it actually take from concept to published book?
Yeah, it was probably about 2 years. So I had an editor friend who I had written some freelance articles for previously when he was at a different organization. And then I don't know what happened exactly he somehow ended up working with Ave Maria Press. And he sent me an email and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about writing a book? And that's when I was like, no. Okay. Yes. And from then, so that was like October or November, 2023. And, so after I kind of got past the initial shock, we kind of started brainstorming together different ideas. And then I signed the contract in January 2024. And they very generously gave me a whole year to write because they know how I'm a stay-at-home mom with a bunch of kids and I'm going to need a whole year. So then, I spent all of that year writing, and then I turned it in February 2025. And then we had like editing back and forth all summer. And then I would say it was probably like fully done by maybe August. And then after that, it was like cover art, and everything else after that.
The cover's great, I've got to say. I love the cover of this book. There's so many it's even got 2 trees on it. Like yes. the 2 trees of Valinor.
Yeah. When they sent me the first mock-up, it had like 5 trees. And I was like, no, like what if we, just put 2 trees? So I was really excited about that. And then I had the idea, there's a little star at the top of the cover. And that was like my nod to the Star of Eärendil. So I was super excited about that.
Yeah, that's great. Like I showed it to my brother, who I always reference on this show. And he also, like, the first thing he said was, ooh, the cover is great. So,
oh, yay.
It's always great. And I'm sure it was for you too, to actually finally have the thing in your hands. But one other question I had was, so this is from Ave Maria Press, and they're associated with a University of Notre Dame, if I'm not mistaken. And so they're a Catholic press. So who is the audience for this book? Is it generally written for other Catholics who are interested in Tolkien, or were you thinking about did you have a broader audience in mind? So
I would say the audience for my book is the same as it is for Tea with Tolkien. And I say that kind of similar to The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien says that The Lord of the Rings is fundamentally a religious and Catholic book. What does that mean? It means that The Lord of the Rings is like at the foundation of the story, and it's not an allegory, but Tolkien prefers applicability, where there's, different symbolisms and themes at work. but the freedom of the reader is kind of like the top priority when writing. And so anyone can approach the book from any different perspective, and it doesn't like force any one understanding on you. So that's the way that Tolkien approached The Lord of the Rings. And that's kind of the same approach that I have tried to take with everything that I do. So I do talk about Catholicism a lot. I talk about Tolkien's faith, and then I also talk about how it relates to my own faith, just because, like, you know, I'm the author of the book, so there's going to have to be some stuff about me in it. But I have really tried to create something that doesn't feel like pushy or like it's forcing any certain perspective on anyone. It's just like, here's some facts about Tolkien, here's some facts about me, here's the way that it influences all this stuff. But I would hope that anyone who's approaching the book kind of with an open mind would find something encouraging or inspiring within it, even if they aren't Catholic.
Oh, yeah. And I definitely think, you know, having read the book, I definitely think you achieved that very well. Yeah.
Yay. That's always a huge relief, because that's one of my kind of big things in mind as I'm writing, is I wanted to try very hard to balance that and not make it feel like if someone is approaching it from a non-Catholic perspective, are they going to feel like they're not welcome in the book? That was like a huge thing I wanted to avoid.
Awesome. So yeah, the next question I had, so I unfortunately have not been able to read any of the book, but so just for people like myself who have not, what is the structure of the book? Do you pick certain passages or chapters from The Lord of the Rings, or is it more of just kind of a broad exploration of themes?
So the book is a spiritual journey or a spiritual companion to The Lord of the Rings. And so the way that the chapters flow is that you're basically following the journey. First, at the beginning of the book, we talk a little bit about Bilbo. So you're almost following Bilbo's journey a little bit. And then the rest of the book, you're basically following along in Frodo's story. So you start at Bag End, you go out, you have your friends, so you're learning about fellowship. Then you go to like Lothlorien, where you're learning about discernment and temptation. You get farther along, and then we're talking about hope and grief and, you know, some like heavier themes as you're getting towards the kind of the end of the story. And then we're talking about the happy ending, the consolation, the eucatastrophe towards the end of the book. So it kind of flows in the same way as The Lord of the Rings does.
As a Tolkien fan, I love appendices because that's just what you do as a Tolkien fan. Are there any favorite sections in your book that you're excited for people to read? The footnotes, the hyperlinks, the appendices?
Yeah, I was super excited that they put appendices in the book, because originally all of that stuff was in the intro. And so the introduction to the book was like 20,000 words long. And we were like, no, like that's not how this works.
It's like a novella.
Yeah, we had to move so much stuff to the back. And so the way that they reformatted for me, they gave me appendices, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just like Tolkien. And I think there's 5 appendices too. So I was so delighted by that. And I love the way that they ended up kind of being placed in the book, because they can serve as an intro for a lot of things for people who are less familiar with Tolkien. Like, so I have summaries of The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion in one appendix. And then I also have a discussion of major themes for Tolkien. So we talk about, like, what is eucatastrophe? And then what is this idea of subcreation? And then we also talk about true myth. And then we also talk about in another appendix, there's like different ways to get connected with Tolkien fans, either in person or online, just because my guess is if you're reading my book, you're interested in connecting with other Tolkien fans. So I thought that would be helpful. But in terms of like my favorite section of the book, I thought it was really fun. There's this very obscure reference that I got to make there's a, I think you would probably call it like a scholarly journal. It's edited by some amazing Tolkien scholars, and it's called Parma Eldalamberon. And the 17th volume talks about different like Elvish words and phrases. And in that volume, we learn about Sauron's original name, being Myron, which means like the admirable one. And so then Sauron means like, it's almost like the inverse where it's like the abhorred one. And so I got to include like a reference. Yeah. So I got to include a reference to it in the book. And that was really fun for me because like nobody knows who this is or what this is. So it felt very like, I don't know, we're getting like really in the weeds, almost like an Easter egg in the book.
Yeah, the fact that Sauron's name is an Elvish pun strikes me as just, I love that.
There's so much to it, yeah.
I always heard that Sauron in Elvish, like, because Myron meant the beautiful one, that Sauron meant the stinky one. So they were calling him a poo-poo head in Elvish. And I just always really adored, like, yours is much, like, that sounds more Elvish. Mine doesn't, so yours is probably right.
No, I mean, like, there's definitely like layers to the Elvish languages, and it is a fact that the Maiar, when they become evil, they like have a bad smell to them. So Sauron, like, canonically would be like stinky and gross. So when he once was admirable and like, you know, a noble servant of the Valar, he has now become this like filthy, disgusting, nasty guy that nobody likes. And I love that the elves have these names for him.
Well, he does turn into goo in Rings of Power, so you see
Ron. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and as a follow-up question on the appendices, you did put your own family line in the appendices as well, right? Your family history and your family line.
Yeah. We've got the tale of years of my entire biography.
Tale of years.
That part I am joking about.
Yes.
For anyone who's not actually read the book, there is not that.
I do have to say that so this, as soon as I picked it up and started reading it, I'm like, this is, and I mean this without a shred of envy, that this is a book I wish I had written. And I say that without a shred of envy because it's way better than the book I would have produced.
Aww.
But it's just like, I mean, yeah, just like the idea for this book is great. But I know that in the final book, you know, we've both worked with editors, and editors are a godsend because they just show you, you know, how the book could be better. And, you know, and I just wonder, like, were there any sections of the book that you had to remove, you know, that may, you know, like Tolkien, you know, I think both of us as writers probably tend to run long. So like, what did you have to remove from this book? Is there anything that material you have for potential sequels?
Yeah. So when I was cutting stuff out of the manuscript, I made sure to save all of it. So I copied and pasted it into a different document. And that document is like 40,000 words long. And so much of it is just like super in-depth lore stuff. And the writing process and the editing process was basically my editor being like, hey, I'm a pretty casual Lord of the Rings fan, and I have no idea what you're talking about here. And so I had to be like, okay, like let's you know, dial it back a little bit and try and kind of bridge this gap for people who maybe haven't read the Silmarillion 15 times. So a lot of it, I almost kind of viewed this book as like, if you were in college, this would be like the 101 course. And then everything in my like other document would be like the 201. So maybe we could someday do like a sequel that's like, here's all the, you know, extra stuff maybe. But yeah, it was so much stuff about like Numenor, or kind of like the lineage of Elrond and the way that it's all connected. I had to cut a lot of that out because it ended up just reading like a really long family tree. Which,
I did like the section on Elrond where you talk about like, man, this guy has been through a lot of grief, you know, and I was really glad that you included that because, I feel like, you know, of course, Elrond's is kind of summer, but behind that is a lot of, you know, I wouldn't say angst, but yeah, more like, yeah, just heartache.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he really endures a lot. And in the movies, they kind of make him, this very like pessimistic, like men are weak. And, like I feel like they almost do him kind of a disservice in the movies because he comes across as so like hardened and grumpy. And I feel like Elrond in the books has a heart that has not been hardened. And it's like very intentional. He's as kind as summer. He has this gentleness to him where he hasn't been broken by, all of these horrible things he's been through. So, in the movies, it's a little different.
Do you have any favorite Tolkien characters and or Tolkien books?
Yeah, the Silmarillion is definitely my favorite book. It's hard to even think of a favorite character. If I want to kind of name a character that I'm sure everyone knows about, that isn't super like obscure first age elf, I would say Sam Gamgee. I think you can't go wrong with picking Sam as your favorite. If I were to pick a character that more people would be like, confused by, I would probably say someone like Fingolfin, just because I think he's super cool.
That's metal.
Yeah, like you really can't go wrong with him either.
Yeah, I was going to say with the stuff you cut out, are you saying you have an extended edition that you're going to release one day?
Beat me to my own joke.
Yeah, basically. Well, it's like, did you see that interview with Peter Jackson the other day where he said everyone's been asking for like the extended edition and they've been calling it the Mithril cut, and he just was basically like, there's no Mithril cut, it doesn't exist.
I think
maybe
he's
there
lying.
is yeah.
He's lying. He's got it.
He has it somewhere.
I know. Don't you want our money? Like, come on. Yeah. Maybe he's just waiting until like he needs, until he like runs low on cash. Then maybe he'll really fit.
Yeah.
If we dig deep enough, I bet we can find it. Nothing bad will happen.
Yeah, you might awaken the Balrog first.
They dug too greedily and too deep.
We're like, where's my Mithril cut?
So I guess this isn't really much of a question, but is there, if you wanted to read an excerpt, however long or short, do you want to read one? And you can say no if you don't want
to. I just had a book signing 2 days ago, and I read this excerpt. It was my first one. It was like nerve-wracking, terrifying.
Oh, they are. The first one is always terrifying.
Yeah, I survived, but it just barely survived. But I have a excerpt that I read about hope, and I'll read just a little bit of it. It was kind of long, but so this is from the chapter about hope, and we're talking about Sam Gamgee as an exemplar of hope. And I say here, some people think of hope as a delicate flower that can be crushed or withered or torn out petal by petal. But hope is not so fragile. Hope is a shining star high above all doubt, a star that burns with the power of 1,000 years' strength. Hope holds the stories of the past and whispers a promise for the future. Hope is the stern face of one potato farming hobbit, covered in dirt and sweat, eyes blinded with tears, taking just one more step forward into the darkness. And then I just go on to talk about like Sam as being someone who embodies fortitude, which is a virtue that we talk about in the book. But hope is like one of my favorite things with Tolkien and such a key theme in the Lord of the Rings. And I think it's something that we really need currently in our current day and age. So I love talking about hope.
Yeah, and it's very, very applicable because we're in Lent right now, and we're not far from March 25th, which is the of course Tolkien reading day, and it's the day the ring was destroyed. So it's very appropriate for that season, for that quote. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely love thinking about all of this during Lent too.
Yeah, especially like, what would make good like Lenten reading? Those Mordor chapters where Frodo and Sam are just like inching their way over the gasping dust and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's like a great Holy Week reading if you just read like the 2 chapters before the ring is destroyed. Like that'd be a great Holy Week reading.
So, Rob, do you have another question for Kaitlyn?
Well, we know the follow-up is all the everything you cut out. which I'm trying to pre-order my copy of that book, but it's not appearing. So as soon as that pops up, I'll be like number 3. I have slow internet, so I'll be number 3, but I will be one of the first ones. Would you write another book about Tolkien? What would it be about?
I have no idea. I feel like currently, as I am right now, like all I can think of is I want to take a nap. I need like a break. I love writing about Tolkien. I think someone suggested to me writing a book. So this book is about like all of the goodness of Middle Earth. They're like, next up, write a book about all of the evil in Middle Earth. Make it like an exploration of like Tolkien's villains. And I'm like, I don't know how that would really work with like, my mission and my goal. And I don't know if a Catholic publisher would want to publish that. But I think it's kind of fun exploring those things. You can see Tolkien's villains as cautionary tales. And the fact that nothing is evil in the beginning, it means that even Sauron wasn't evil to begin with. So what did he do that led him to become the Dark Lord Sauron? And how can we avoid that fate in our own lives? Like, of course, we are not, quite so powerful as Sauron, but each of us has that potential to kind of stray from the path of goodness. So maybe that's something I could write about.
You got the green light for me. It sounds great.
Yay.
Yeah.
If you want that book, people, make sure you buy this one and
buy
share it on
this book.
Share it everywhere. And
as a follow up, another kind of next what's next question, but what's next for the Tea with Tolkien community? Are you guys up to anything fun over there for Lent or after? Or are you guys having a Discord launch party or something like that?
Yeah, we actually just finished yesterday our Silmarillion book club. And so that was always so fun. It's such I feel like it's a privilege to be able to go through the Silmarillion with people for the first time. And it's I'm so proud of them at the end because the Silmarillion is not easy. And then after that, we are going to be doing a book club of my book starting in probably early April. We had it scheduled to start earlier in March, but a lot of people haven't gotten their copies yet because either they're overseas and the books haven't arrived yet, or I think what happened is that my book was more popular than was expected, which is a problem. It's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem because now a lot of people haven't gotten their pre-orders still, and the book's been out for like 2 weeks now. So we were going to start the book club like next week, but I think we're going to push it back till maybe April. And then after that, once that wraps up, I'm really excited to do a big Lord of the Rings book club. And it's going to take us like 6 months. So we'll kind of go through everything a little slowly, where with the Silmarillion, we were reading at it was like a sprint. It was very overwhelming, but I had to kind of make it work with my schedule. And I know some people prefer to do kind of quick read-alongs. So that was very intense, but with the Lord of the Rings, it should be kind of nice leisurely walk.
And just one other question I had, and I just thought of it now. So recently we did an episode on Leaf by Niggle, and I know a lot of creative people, like myself, who have read that, identify with Niggle, and we're like, yeah, he's me, and it was basically Tolkien's exploration of himself as a creative person. And I was just curious, have you ever read Leaf by Niggle? And if you did you have a similar experience?
Oh, yeah. I feel like Niggle is like all creative people where you're just stuck on something. And it's like you have this idea, you can't get it out of your head. And it can be very tempting to neglect everything else just to focus on this one thing that you've got going on. So it's definitely like a cautionary tale for me.
Yeah, and for our listeners, you didn't miss an episode. That one's forthcoming. So
right, yeah, we recorded that. We recorded that. I forgot that we recorded that episode out of order. Thank you, Jeff. Yes,
yeah. So you didn't miss an episode, but look forward to it.
It's a spoiler.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, I'm still getting back into the swing of things after having been on hiatus for a while. But I'm so glad that we have time for our bonus round of questions, which is more about sort of things that you've missed, Kaitlyn, on the podcast that we talk about constantly in terms of other adaptations of Tolkien stuff. Jeff, do you have a question for us?
Yeah, so I already mentioned Reading Day, but that's coming up, and this year's theme is unlikely heroes. So I just wanted to ask, do you have a favorite unlikely hero in the Legendarium?
Yeah, and I've been trying to think of some good ones because I feel like you have the ones that everyone thinks of. Like, of course, there's like Sam Gamgee. But one unlikely hero that I've kind of been thinking of lately has been Merry and Pippin, because they really like aren't yeah, they like aren't supposed to be there. They like Elrond doesn't want to even let them join the Fellowship, and until Gandalf is like, "Nah, bro, they're cool." So I feel like they have a really big role to play in the Lord of the Rings, and yet throughout the whole story, they're just kind of either feeling like they're a burden, they're feeling like they're in the way, they're like wondering what they're even doing here, and so I think it could be fun to explore them as unlikely heroes.
Awesome. Yeah, it's hard to argue with Merry and Pippin as being unlikely heroes or my favorite characters. It's just they're almost always at the top of my list. So awesome. Thank you.
So Rings of Power is, in theory, an adaptation of Tolkien's works. War of the Rohirrim is based on like 4 paragraphs of Tolkien, something like that. Like very little. What did you think as an exploration of what Tolkien might have been?
Yeah, I thought that the story as it was written was very fun. I like the concept of taking something from Tolkien where you have just a little bit of actual text material and expanding it into more stories, because I think it's really fun and it gives people kind of the opportunity to enter into Middle Earth in different ways and to have these different perspectives. The way that the movie kind of ended up as the final product, it felt kind of unfinished to me. I thought some of the animation was not the best. It kind of at points made me like nauseous the way that everything was animated. And I think it was maybe a little too long of a movie. But in general, I thought it was a fun movie. And the best part was going to the theaters with my kids and being like, we're here to see Lord of the Rings, like just that as an experience, I think made it all worth it. But overall, like I watched it once, don't really like feel super like I need to watch it again, but for what it was, I think it was nice.
Okay. I mean, that seems fair.
I'm curious, like to hear what you guys all thought about it.
I enjoyed the story, like you, Kaitlyn, and I was disappointed by the animation, but I did enjoy the story and the voice acting and the general plot of things, and it was just cool to return to Middle Earth on the big screen again. That was basically my thoughts on it. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and when I was in the theaters, there was a trailer for the Demon Slayer movie, which is another anime movie. And to see that kind of excellent animation right before then going into this kind of like mid animation, I think kind of was also a little bit jarring for me.
Yeah, no, for me, I mean, I like the movie, and it's one that I'll probably revisit whenever I do kind of it's part of my Tolkien canon films, as it were, and I'll probably put it on after I watch, maybe after watch Fellowship as kind of a lead up to Two Towers, since the Rohirrim are such a big part of it. But yeah, overall, it was okay.
I actually didn't like it at all when it first came out, but I'm that guy. I'm sorry. I'm that guy. I have a friend, though, who is very, he's my weeb. I don't know if you guys have an anime fan, but I have a designated weeb friend, and he sat me down. He was like, look, this is the culture that is approaching Tolkien. This is what they think is important. This is why they did this, and this. And he basically sat me down. He walked me through it. And now I don't mind it as much. I keep Tolkien's phrase of like, I'm going to butcher this paraphrase. I'm going to look like an idiot in front of all of these people, but he had this saying of like, other hands would write this story. Like, he was open to the idea of collaboration. In my head, that was him and Lewis creating a masterpiece that I never got to read, but there is, like, he had a precedent for other people exploring his world, and when taken as, like, a totally different culture exploring, okay, so what's Tolkien? Like, what is Middle-earth through our lens? It works really well on that, because it kind of makes you appreciate the things you like about Tolkien more, and gives you something new to look at.
That's a really neat perspective. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it as the idea that when Tolkien creates myth, his own myth, he is inspired by other myths of the past, like all of these ancient Norse myths and the Finnish myths. And so he kind of takes everything from the past to create his own myth. And then now his myth is being transformed for future generations. And so I think just like as a concept, the fact that the War of the Rohirrim exists is like a huge testament to what Tolkien created, even though it's different and things are transforming along the way. It's almost like how you have like the Greek, the myth of Perseus, and then you have Percy Jackson.
Right.
Now. And it's like myth just lives on, and that just as a fact, and the way that it just grows and evolves and changes, and you have different versions you like, and they speak to different people. But the fact that it exists, I think, is just super cool.
All right. So when we rebooted this show, and it was me, you, Kaitlyn, Jeff, and Thomas Salerno, we were going through episode by episode that first really rough season of Rings of Power. So I have to ask you, what did you think of season 2? The highs, the lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What did you think of Rings of Power 2.0?
Yeah, I consider myself a big fan of Rings of Power. There were some things about season 2 that were so good. I think they really did Eregion well. They did Anatar and Celebrimbor really well. What I didn't like, or I found kind of like a waste of screen time, a little harsh, but the Harfoots and like the Stoors, that whole plot with Gandalf finally being revealed after forever. To me, anytime they were on screen, I was like, we could have been in Numenor. We could have been in Eregion. And so I found like there were great moments, and then the lows of the show took away so much from those moments, to the point where at the end, it almost feels like a roller coaster as you're watching it, because you're like, this was brilliant. And then you get to 5 minutes later, you're like, how did this get past the first checkpoint? Like, how did this, So, but at the end of the day, like, I love the Rings of Power. Like, I feel like I am like a very big fan of the Rings of Power. And I'm just happy to kind of see it evolving and growing as a show. And the fact that we get to go back into Middle Earth, and I get to bring my kids with me, kind of just like a War of the Rohirrim, the way that it's just another opportunity or an entry point into Middle Earth. It's really cool that it exists.
Yeah, I do enjoy the show. I enjoy the ride that it takes me on. And whenever people like throw all the criticisms, I'm like, no, yeah, you're right. I still enjoy it. I don't care. Like, it's like, but and also just like one other thing that I enjoyed about the show was one of the original characters, Adar, and his whole arc. I thought was just R.I.P. Adar. That was just,
it was a real one.
And I choose to believe that he was saved at the end, like just from the expression on his face as he passes. I'm like, he got to see the light of the Valar again. I choose to believe that. But
it's a really, really tragic story. And I thought it was really interesting too. The showrunners said that they had planned to kill the character a lot earlier, but that it was Simon Tolkien who was like, no, we got to keep him. And so I was like, whoa, like, unexpected, but really cool. that
That's
it was
right, because
Simon advocating for him. Yeah,
he's been an advisor on the show, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I haven't read any of his books. I plan to. I just like the fact that like he knows that like, okay, I have to do a totally different genre than what my grandfather did. I have to write like historical fiction and murder mysteries and stuff because there's no way. Like,
yeah, he's not going to do fantasy. I've read. I'm maybe like 6 or 7 chapters into one of his books. I've been listening to the audiobook and I find it very interesting. So yeah, but it's very different. It's definitely not fantasy.
Awesome. And yeah, I think our final question in this bonus round is, with we like to make fun of the Hobbit movies on this show. We just covered them on the podcast last month. And there's another Peter Jackson movie coming out, or I guess the executive produced Peter Jackson movie coming out. The Hunt for Gollum. Just any thoughts on that movie? And, is it necessary, or is it, is it going to be just something like The Hobbit? So we just love to hate on, or just any general thoughts on.
No, just kidding.
Anything you have to say on The Hunt for Gollum.
It's hard for me to like find any excitement in my heart for it yet. What I don't like is that they seem to be recasting or like reusing as many of the old actors as possible. And to me, it's like, why not give some new talent a chance? Like, why do you have to be, it almost feels like the kings of Numenor who are like clinging to their power and refusing to like let someone else step in and rule. It's like, okay, you guys made some amazing movies in Middle Earth. Like, why not give someone else a chance? So, but then at the same time, I've heard rumors that they are recasting Aragorn, and then we're gonna meet like young Smeagol. So it's hard to even like say anything about it yet because I feel like it's all rumors. But just the fact that the War of the Rohirrim, or at least the way that it was advertised, felt like such a nostalgia grab, where they're like, "Hey, remember these movies? Remember these movies? You liked these movies, right? You want to give us, $20 to see it again?" That's what it felt like. And so I'm worried they're going to do the same thing again. Like, hey, you remember the score for these Lord of the Rings movies? Let's just rehash it again for a whole nother movie. You liked Ian McKellen as Gandalf? Well, he's Gandalf again, I don't know. So I hope it'll be good. I just hope that they give some new talent like a chance to shine, because that's what I feel like this should all be about, is like bringing more people into the Middle Earth universe and like finding new talent, because a lot of the actors in the Lord of the Rings movies were like relatively unknown at a time, and it like shaped their careers. So why don't we give someone else a chance for that to happen?
Yeah. And, we like to joke that they're going to recast everybody, or they're going to bring everybody back. But one thing I do hope is that, because we didn't get to see them in the Lord of the Rings movies, is Elrond's sons, because they're, besties with Aragorn. So it could be a chance to see them and the Grey Company and just more of the Dunedain Rangers that we don't get to see, because they're in the book. They hang out with Aragorn a lot of the in the latter books. They hang out with him and are with him for a lot of it. So that's kind of my hope, is that they'll bring him. They'll have them in there. But we'll see. I think it's December of 2027, so we're almost 2 years at this point. So yeah, we got a while. Yeah. But
I'm sure like my thoughts will form, more cohesively as we get closer, because at this point it's like people will text me and be like, "Oh, I heard a rumor about this," and then I'll see an article. It's a rumor about whatever, and like at this point it feels kind of all up in the air.
Well, we do know for certain we will have a new generation of dwarf elf romances to.
There it is. Contractual reference.
Mark your bingo cards, folks. We made the reference in the episode. We managed it.
Yeah, Kaitlyn, that's a running joke we have. If you don't listen to us, we have to reference the elf dwarf romance
at least once per episode. Yeah,
that's great.
It'll be funny though if the fan film, The Hunt for Gollum, ends up being better than the thing that Hollywood produced.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, I know I've seen the Born of Hope one, but I don't remember if I've seen the Hunt for Gollum fan film yet. But
it's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah,
they do a lot. They do a lot with the obviously micro budget that they had. Gollum spends a lot of it tied up in a sack, which is hilarious because like you see the sack moving while a very good Andy Serkis impersonator is like screaming and wailing, and Aragorn's just like, oh my gosh, what is my life right now? But like,
he's like, why did Gandalf make me do this?
I was there, Gandalf.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
There's some interesting stuff that they could include, because they can include, like, you know, we can meet Smeagol before he becomes kind of like wretched, and then we can see him when he's like kind of wandering around. He does a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, it says in the Lord of the Rings that he's like crawling into caves and going through windows and eating babies and like, you know, like he's up to quite a lot. And then he gets captured and like questioned by Sauron himself. And like, so, I mean,
he kills Frodo's parents, basically.
Oh,
that would be interesting. Yeah. That would be a bold choice for the movie.
All right. So I think that wraps up the questions we had, unless you guys have any last minute ones you want to get in. No. All right. So Kaitlyn, tell the listeners where they can get your book and also follow you and the whole Tea with Tolkien project.
Yeah, so you can learn more about my book at teawithtolkien.com/book. So it's pretty simple. My website is just teawithtolkien.com, and I'm Tea with Tolkien everywhere. So it should be easy to find me. My book is also on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, like most bookstores online. So whoever you like to support, you know, wherever you buy your books. You can also request it to come to your library, which is a really cool thing for that people can do, because it's free for you. It supports your library. And when you're done with the book, then someone else might find it. So I always love recommending that.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kaitlyn. This has been a wonderful conversation. So thank you for joining us again.
Of course. It was nice to see you guys again, and nice to meet you, Robert.
Nice to meet you too.
All right. Jeff, did we want to do feedback, or will we save that for our next episode? Because I think this one is on an episode I wasn't on, actually.
Yeah. No, we can do it. So it's just one piece of feedback. We did the 1978 Bakshi film back in January. So we had a comment from Robert Stevens. Another Robert. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they are everywhere. Yeah.
I think it was on YouTube, but I didn't write it down. But he said, I appreciate your takes on the Bakshi film. I, too, was first exposed to this film in middle school. That was in the late 80s. We had an amazing English teacher, Mr. Duncan, who showed us the film. He also had previously displayed to the class some of his own fan art based on Tolkien's works and had us do creative writing based on the same, then followed up with the movie. He had beat up old copies of Two Towers and Return of the King, which I had begun to devour. Yes, I read the Two Towers first. It took me forever to find Fellowship. It wasn't available in any bookstore I had access to, and I read it last. And I think even after The Hobbit. He was instrumental in getting me back into reading at that age, for which I am forever grateful. I've since then told him so. He was an amazing teacher. I'd begun role-playing about the same time, D&D mostly, and having seen first the Rankin and Bass Hobbit, that film for a time scarred my mental picture on what elves, and to a lesser degree hobbits as precious should look like. I appreciated the more realistic portrayal in Bakshi's version. Jackson much later hit all the right notes for me, of course, though I still appreciate Bakshi. The books remain the best of all. Books are always better than the movies, but I love all the portrayals of this greatest book series of the 20th century. R.E. Bakshi. I just wish there had been a sequel. Great show, guys. Keep up the good work. And I have lots of shows on it. I love lots of shows on SKPN, and yours is one of them. Take care and Godspeed. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Robert.
Nice. And I did want to say, since I wasn't able to make it for that episode, I have a soft spot for the Bakshi film because around the time that I was first getting into Tolkien through the Peter Jackson films and the audiobooks that were recorded by Rob Inglis, my aunt gave me, I think it was a DVD, or it might have been a VHS at that time still, of the Bakshi movie, and so and the Rankin Bass ones too. I think she gave me all of them, and my aunt has since passed on. So whenever I revisit or think of the Bakshi movie, I always think of her. So it's just something I wanted to add because like I wasn't able to make it for that discussion, but I can't wait to listen to it though. So I haven't listened to it yet, but I will make sure to do so. But all right, that's it for this episode of The Secrets of Middle-earth. But before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank all of our great patrons who make this show possible, including Robert B., Jeffrey B., Anthony Z., Kyle M., and Theodore V. Their generous donations at GiveStarQuest.com make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Middle-earth and all of our shows here at StarQuest, and you can join them, again, by visiting GiveStarQuest.com.
The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the new book by StarQuest's own Kaitlyn Facista, Into the Heart of Middle-earth, a heartfelt exploration of how the timeless themes and values of Tolkien's Middle-earth can inspire and transform our everyday lives. Come on a spiritual journey through the Lord of the Rings, uncovering the themes, virtues, and eternal truths woven into the story, and showing how they can inspire each of us to become a hobbit at heart. Learn more at teawithtolkien.com/book. That's teawithtolkien.com/book.
And be sure to follow The Secrets of Middle-earth in Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or any podcast directory or app. You can find us on social media on Facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X, where we are at SQPN, and on Instagram, where you can find us at StarQuest Network. And don't forget, you can get your own official Secrets of Middle-earth merch, including our really cool t-shirt, at sqpn.com/merch. It's a great way for you guys to support the show and to share your love for Tolkien and his wonderful world of Middle-earth. And of course, we'd like to hear from you, our listeners. Have you read Into the Heart of Middle-earth? Please send us your thoughts. You can let us know on our Facebook page, on Twitter, by sending an email to middleearth@sqpn.com, by leaving a comment on YouTube or Spotify, or you can visit our channel in the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And once again, you can visit Kaitlyn's website, teawithtolkien.com, and order her book wherever fine books are sold. Join us next time for our 4th annual Tolkien Reading Day special. As mentioned, its theme this year is Unlikely Heroes. And thank you once again, Kaitlyn, for joining our fellowship once again to discuss your wonderful book.
Thank you. It was so lovely.
And Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining the discussion.
Thank you, Thomas.
And Robert Story, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And once again, I'm Thomas Salerno. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, The Catholics of Oz. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Oz.